Wow. Good evening, Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, Assalamu Alaikum, Adav, Kim Cho, Vanakkam, Bonjour. Welcome to Brampton East. My name is Maninder Sidhu, and I am your federal Liberal Member of Parliament since 2019, and now your federal Liberal candidate. I'm joined today by my federal candidates from the Liberal Party. We've got Kamal Khera, Ruby Sahota, Sanya Sidhu, and Shafqat Ali. This team, Brampton, has been working so hard for our residents and bringing historic investments for you guys, from our transit investments to affordable housing to more opportunities. And we will continue bringing more results for the city of Brampton. Now, as I look around, I see so many young, inspired faces, faces that I know want to build a better Canada. You remind me of myself when I was a young child, the child of immigrants who came to this country in the early 80s to build a better future. My father worked 18 hours a day in a factory. My mom, the same thing. They did this so me and my brother can have a better life. This is not just my story. This is the story of so many in this room. And why am I telling you this story? Because in Canada, anything is possible. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter your background or which language you speak. And that's what makes Canada so beautiful. Yep, give it up to Canada. I've got to take a step back and say thank you to my parents, my mom and dad. You taught me the value of hard work and the value of giving back. Just like so many parents here, you've sacrificed the 5 a.m. practices, the 11 p.m. dance recitals. Without your hard work and sacrifices, there are many youth like myself that wouldn't have these options. So to all the parents in the room, let's give it up. So as I speak about this how immigrants have helped build Canada, I remember there are so many federal Liberal leaders that helped so many immigrant families, like the Right Honorable Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And when I was a child watching TV, I remember a fire voice coming through the television set. A person, a gentleman who was strong for Canada and helped move Canada in the right direction. Someone who the uncles and aunties would sit around the kitchen table and talk about for endless hours. And I'm so proud that I get the opportunity to introduce to you this fine gentleman. He is the 20th Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honorable Jean Chrétien.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. I'm very pleased to be back. I'm very pleased to be back in Toronto. I've not been in Toronto for a year. I used to come here many, many times a year for 50 years. But tonight, I'm very happy to be here because I have a few things to tell you. I've not made a lot of speeches lately, and it's good to try again. Because I have some notes, and I lived something very unusual in politics. You know, it's unbelievable. The leaders of the oppositions have done something that I never seen. They didn't want to have election. Why? They wanted to keep Trudeau there for 2 more years. You know, Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Singh and the leader of the Bloc Québécois, they seem to be happy. They wanted to carry on with him. And I think that we have an election because it is traditional. I've been in politics since most of you were not born. In '63, I was elected. I was the president of the Liberal Club at Laval in 1957. So I've seen a lot of minority governments. Diefenbaker was elected minority government. He called an election 7 months later. You know, Mr. Pearson has been elected with 2 minority governments, and he called the election after 2 years and a half. When Pierre Trudeau replaced him, he called an election 2 years and a half before '68. So it's like that. It is the tradition that the Prime Minister has followed. And he wanted the Canadian to have a chance to speak. And it's why you have the occasion to express your views, because politics is very important. Take vaccination, for example. You know, they criticize the Prime Minister and the government for that. We have done the best of most of the country in the world. We have more than 80% of the people. For me, I've been vaccinated 86 years ago. You know, I had many vaccines. When I was traveling sometimes in Africa, I needed to have new vaccines. And I'm all right, it's not dangerous. But it is the protection of your neighbors when you do your duty to be vaccinated, because you don't want to be a problem for the people who are working for you. You're all workers. You know that it is dangerous if they come and they are not prepared. So we have to congratulate the government because they have done the right thing, and they have to keep pushing because we don't want to be obliged to go back into the problems we had a year and a half ago when nobody was vaccinated. And, you know, I have something that interests me differently. When I look at the leader of the opposition, you know, he's doing things that I cannot do. On child care, on gun control, on abortion, on climate change. He's doing something I cannot do. He's speaking on both sides of his mouth. Something I cannot do. And, you know, they talk about the government is spending money. And it's true. But it was needed. And all the countries of the world have done the same thing because they were all at the wrong time, not prepared to face a crisis like that. But we have proven that we can face these problems. And the reality is we're in very good shape compared to the rest of the world. Canada has the lowest per capita debt of all the G7 countries in the world, the G7 countries. You know, when I became Prime Minister in 1963, I was preceded by a conservative government. We had a huge deficit, $42 billion for a year. It was, and at that time, the interest rate was 11%. So the year after in '94, it cost the government $4.6 billion to pay for the interest at 11% of the previous deficit. Now, the interests are 1%, so the reality is at $350, it's costing $3.5 billion a year for the interest when I had to pay $4.6 billion for the interest of the previous year of 1993 when we had the Tories in power. But they claim that they are better administrators than the Liberals. I had a huge deficit that my government had to cure, and we did that. After 3 years, we were balancing the books. We had 10 years where we were balancing the books, we were paying the debt, we were reducing taxes and investing at the same time in social and other programs. Of course, after 10 years of Liberal administration, what happened? The Tories came to power. And again, we went into debt, debt and debt. But the Liberals in power have proven that they could come back, and will come back, and will have to do what the other nation will have to do. So for me, I'm confident that we have a great future. Évidemment, je pourrais parler encore beaucoup plus longtemps, mais les circonstances ne le permettent pas. Mais j'ai été quelque peu froissé comme le premier ministre quand le chef du Bloc a prétendu que c'est lui qui parlait au nom de tous les Québécois. Écoutez, j'ai été élu pendant 40 ans au Québec. Je n'ai jamais eu personne qui a parlé à mon nom. J'ai été élu par les gens de Shawinigan pendant 40 ans. Lui-même, il vient de Shawinigan. Est-ce qu'il prétend que les gens de mon comté ne croyaient pas que je les représentais à Ottawa? Quand il va se promener en fin de semaine dans le parc national, parce qu'il vit à Shawinigan, il devrait savoir que c'est le fédéral qui a fait ce travail que tout le monde admire et qu'il en profite. Et quand il dit, par exemple, et qu'il parle au nom des Acadiens, qu'il parle au nom des Québécois, dans sa ville, Shawinigan, c'est Champagne, notre ministre de l'Industrie, qui fait un excellent travail. Alors, à Ottawa, il parle au nom des Québécois de la région de Shawinigan, comme c'est son devoir. Et aujourd'hui, il a prétendu qu'il parlait au nom des Acadiens. Eh bien, les Acadiens, ils ont dit, mêle-toi de tes affaires, on est capable de parler pour nous-mêmes, on a des députés francophones qui viennent du Nouveau-Brunswick, et on est capable de s'occuper de nos propres affaires. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, je pourrais continuer, mais je vais finir avec ceci. J'ai un message. Parce que c'est l'avenir. C'est l'avenir. And we're living in a time that are very, very difficult. There is a lot of turmoil in the world. We see the problems of the change in the society in the South. We see the emergence of China. We have the problem of climate change. We have many difficult problems. And it's not the time to move to the far right or to the far left. It's the time to be in the middle. It's the time to be reasonable. You know, and who has been the political party who has been the most reasonable? The Liberal Party is the same party since 1867. The Liberal Party had been asked to form the government for more than 70%. The Liberal Party has the same name, never been forced to change his name. The Liberal Party is the party that always represented the best value of Canada. And for me, I believe when I see the crowd that I have around me, I see that it is the best example of the world. We have people who have come from all over the world. They came to Canada because they knew that it was the land of opportunity. That was the land of generosity. the land of trust, the land of sharing, the land of liberty. This is the Liberal Party. This is what Canada is all about. There's millions and millions of people around the world who would give the last penny they have to come and become a Canadian citizen. And it's why I'm asking you tonight to ask your friend to vote, to go to vote for the Liberal Party, for the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, that I know is associated in a long time because I was in the House with his father. You know, I want you to make sure that we have a reasonable government, and people were always asking me, was is a Liberal in Canada? And I would say, you know, the people, what is a Liberal in the United States is a left-winger. What is a Liberal in Europe is a right-winger. So what is a Canadian Liberal? And I would say a Liberal in Canada is the one that when the people say he is, the people on the left say he is from the right, and the people of the right say he's from the left. That means that he is a Liberal, Canadian, Chrétien, right in the center, the radical center of politics, that it is the best politics we have, and we can have. And I have always traveled this land for the last 56 years, and I've always been able and proudly say to the people, there is no better country in the world than Canada, and vive le Canada! Merci beaucoup.
Let's give it up for the Right Honourable Jean Chrétien. He said it best. There's no better country than Canada. And now, I am honored and privileged to introduce our leader and the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
How are you doing tonight, my friends? How you doing, Brampton? What was that? I can't hear you. How you doing, Brampton? Let's give it up one more time for our outstanding team, Maninder, Shafkat, Ruby, Sonia, and Kamo. And thank you, Jean, for your leadership and for your words and for your presence tonight. C'est tellement un grand plaisir de pouvoir passer un peu de temps avec toi. Ça me touche énormément que tu sois ici avec nous. Thank you, Jean, for sharing with us tonight how important this election is. Thank you for your leadership. You know, I was talking with him on the way over. He was pointing out that it was about 70 years ago that he got involved in his first election campaign back in 1952 as a young volunteer. And his dedication to politics, his dedication to this country continues to be an inspiration to us all, starting with me. Merci, Monsieur Chrétien. That's how we pull together all generations to build a better Canada for everyone. But speaking of strong leaders, I know we've got someone else very special to me and to people across the GTA, especially next door in Mississauga, the extraordinary Hazel McCallion. Hazel You were leading back when my father was Prime Minister, and I know you were good friends with him. You've been there to work with and support Jean Chrétien when he was Prime Minister, and now you've been a friend and a supporter, and I am so touched to have you by my side and supporting me in this important election as well. Thank you, Hazel. And I can't help but think back into 2015, where she clearly pointed out that Mr. Harper was saying things that weren't true. And having you by my side yet again this time is incredibly important to me and to all of us. You are truly a force to be reckoned with, Hazel. Thank you so much. And, of course, to all you Liberals here this evening, my friends, it's so good to see you. You know, with just 1 week left in this campaign, I know this Liberal team is giving our all. Here in Brampton, you've knocked on thousands and thousands of doors and made thousands more calls. Well, keep it up. Mes amis, le moment est venu d'aller encore plus loin. On ne peut pas se permettre d'arrêter maintenant. Our country is at a crossroads, and we're facing two very different paths. Aaron O'Toole is pointing backwards down that old Conservative Party roadmap, trickle-down economics. He believes in that failed theory that if the rich get richer, it'll eventually make it down to you. Except that it never does, it never has. My friends, we know that if you really want to grow the economy, you have to strengthen the middle class and people working hard to join it. Because that's what truly lifts people up. Back in 2015, I made a promise to middle-class families across the country that we would have your back. And you know what? That's exactly what we did. In our first years, we lifted 1 million people out of poverty while creating 1 million jobs. Ensemble, on a sorti 435 000 enfants de la pauvreté avec l'allocation canadienne pour enfants. On a augmenté les impôts pour les 1% les plus nantis afin de pouvoir les baisser pour la classe moyenne. On a garanti une retraite plus sûre pour les aînés avec plus de soutien financier. Et pendant la crise, on ne vous a pas laissé tomber. The last 18 months have been incredibly challenging. They've been utterly exhausting. And for too many, they've been marked by grief and loss. I understand why so many Canadians are tired. It's been hard. Hard on our kids, hard on our aging parents, hard on caregivers, frontline workers, and teachers, hard on everyone. Canadians have seen, and in many cases lived, the vulnerabilities in our social safety net that have been exposed by this pandemic. We saw how quickly women's participation in the workforce plummeted, how racialized and low-income neighborhoods were hit disproportionately by the virus. When the pandemic fell on all of us around the world, there were no off-the-shelf solutions. So those of us in government rolled up our sleeves and worked day and night. We built the CERB and rolled it out across Canada to support families. We created the wage subsidy to have workers' backs and to support small businesses. And here in Brampton, the wage subsidy helped volunteer MBC keep staff on the payroll so that they could continue connecting organizations with volunteers in this crucial time. At a time when so many people needed a helping hand, Volunteer MBC was there to make sure local food banks and nonprofit organizations helping seniors and families had the help they needed. We built these emergency supports to be there for Canadians so that businesses and organizations could keep their doors open, so that people could put food on the table and pay their rent and mortgage, but more than that, so people could stay home and stay healthy. And you know what that did? It set us up to come roaring back. That's why today we've recovered 95% of the jobs lost during COVID compared to 76% in the US. We invested in the healthcare system in every province and territory to absorb the surge and beat the curve. And we made sure that every single Canadian could get vaccinated. And now, we're leading the world. So if you haven't already, get your shots. And if you know someone who hasn't, talk to them. That's how we'll get through this, together. Of course, here in Brampton, I don't have to tell you what it means to be there for each other. I think of Brampton's Sikh community that continues to step up to help neighbors through seva, making meals and raising funds. Just take the example of Kamal Kara, who returned to work as a nurse at the height of the pandemic. Kamal, you have inspired the community, and your dedication shows that we are all stronger when we support each other. I know many of you have been worried about the safety of your families with the lived reality of racism. We're all remembering and grieving Prabjot Singh Khatri, who was recently killed in Truro, Nova Scotia. He came here to look for new opportunities and to build a life for himself. And that unacceptable act of hatred was a reminder that racism still exists in Canada, which is why we must always stand up against hatred and intolerance, because we are stronger together and always will be. When we look out for those around us, we find the light in each other. We find our path forward. My friends, there are better times just around the bend. We're on the brink of a new day dawning in Canada. But before the sun comes out, before this storm clears, there are things we have to get right. There can be no moving forward for everyone. There can be no full economic recovery for anyone unless we finish the fight against COVID-19 for good. On est à l'aube de jours meilleurs pour notre pays. Et pour y arriver, il faut poser des gestes décisifs. Il faut commencer par en finir avec la COVID-19 une bonne fois pour toutes. C'est pourquoi on a travaillé sans relâche qu'on ait assez de vaccins pour tous les Canadiens. C'est pourquoi on va exiger que tous les passagers de 12 ans ou plus à bord d'un avion ou d'un train soient vaccinés. C'est pourquoi on va payer la facture des provinces et des territoires qui mettent en place des programmes de certification vaccinale, parce qu'on sait ce qui est en jeu. Et M. O'Toole, lui, ne le comprend tout simplement pas. Mr. O'Toole won't make sure that the traveler sitting beside you and your kids on a train or plane is vaccinated. He won't even make sure his own candidates are vaccinated. In fact, we just learned that Mr. O'Toole is just fine with his candidates who aren't fully vaccinated campaigning inside seniors' homes. Does that make any sense for our families, for kids, for our economy? No, it absolutely doesn't. But you know who it does make sense for? Well, it makes sense for the far-right anti-vax wing of his party, that's who. The mobs of anti-vaxxers, of anti-maskers who are harassing doctors and nurses, waiters and business owners. Do you know what he just said to them? He said that there's room for them in his big tent party. That's who he's chosen. That's the path he wants to take for this country. And it just isn't right. This is the moment for real leadership, and Mr. O'Toole doesn't lead, he misleads. He promised the gun lobby he would repeal our ban on assault weapons, and then he tried to hide it from Canadians. You can't say you'd make our communities safer while secretly planning to work with the gun lobby on which banned assault weapons you would legalize. Right now, the gun lobby is campaigning against Liberals. Well, I have news for them. This Liberal team is never going to back down on gun control, especially not this great Liberal team here in Brampton. They've never backed down. They never will. And we're not going to let Mr. O'Toole keep misleading Canadians. You can't say you have a plan for jobs when you don't have a plan to fight climate change, when you take us backwards to Stephen Harper's old targets, when you refuse to even call out the climate change deniers within your own party. It's 2021. If you don't have a plan for the economy, you don't have a plan for the economy if you don't have a plan for the environment. And let's be clear, on climate change, it's not just the Conservative leader that has a problem. So does Mr. Singh and the NDP, because their climate plan fails to meet the challenge. En ce moment, on a besoin de vrai leadership. C'est pas ça qu'offre M. O'Toole. Un leader qui peut pas dire qu'il défend les femmes quand il permet à plus de 80 de ses députés de voter contre le droit des femmes de choisir. Un leader peut pas dire qu'il défend les soins de santé quand il s'engage à rendre notre système de plus en plus privatisé. Tout comme un leader ne peut pas dire qu'il défend les familles quand il va déchirer les ententes pour des services de garde à 10 $ à travers le pays. My friends, Mr. O'Toole has made the choice very, very clear. We choose building good green jobs and careers for years to come, not climate denial that leaves Canada's workers behind. We choose helping young people save a down payment to own their own homes, not giving wealthy landlords tax cuts to get even richer. We choose strengthening public health care. He chooses experimenting with privatizing health care. We choose banning assault weapons. He chooses the gun lobby. We choose the rights of Canadians who got vaccinated. He chooses anti-vaxxers. That's the choice. The choice is between a Conservative Party that would take Canada backwards or a government that always has your back. I know where I stand. I stand with you. This is the moment for progressive leadership. And we are the best progressive choice and the only progressive party that can stop the Conservatives from taking us backward. My friends, we're the party with the experience, the team, and the plan to continue delivering real results for Canadians. The party with a real commitment to ending this pandemic, to keeping assault weapons out of our communities, with the proven record on signing childcare deals, with the strongest plan on climate. In other words, the party with real ambition and a real plan, not a dream and a wish list. So if you want $10 a day childcare, go out and vote Liberal. If you want moms to be able to return to work and an economy that comes roaring back, go out and vote Liberal. If you want a future where everyone can find a family doctor and no one has to be on a wait list if you want assault weapons to stay illegal, if you want Canada to lead the world on good green jobs, go out and vote Liberal. And above all, if you want to end this pandemic for good, go out and vote Liberal. Mes amis, ensemble, on a beaucoup accompli. Et ensemble, on peut aller encore plus loin. Je suis prêt à travailler encore plus fort. Je suis rempli d'espoir et je sais que vous l'êtes aussi. My friends, we're on the brink of a new, better day. And it's time to make your voice heard. It's time to step up, join our movement, make some calls, go knock doors, talk to your neighbor, talk to your family. Keep believing in what we can achieve together because we're ready for the hard work. We're ready for the hope. My friends, let's choose to finish the fight against COVID. Let's build a better tomorrow that leaves no one behind. And let's keep moving forward for everyone. Merci, mes amis. Thank you, Brampton.